Welcome everyone to the 100th Celebrity Synastry chart reading, where I will be looking into Elizabeth Taylor and Conrad Hilton Jr. This will also be the start of a mini series of sorts on my channel where I will be starting to look into Elizabeth Taylor and all of her husbands. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Adeline and it is so nice to meet you. On this channel, I look at the dynamic between two celebrities using astrology. For those new and returning, I take notes on a synastry chart looking at the personal planets, signs, aspects, and if birth time is available, house overlays. I share these notes and add my extra insights and interpretations along the way. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe and click the bell to join us weekly, and let's get right into this one. So just before we hop into this reading, as I said in the beginning, this is going to be a start of a sort of like series where I'm going to be looking into Liz Taylor and all of her husbands in order. I'm very excited for this one. I've always wanted to look into all of her relationships and kind of like trajectory of all of them. So hopefully you guys are just as excited and happy to go on this little journey mini series with me. Starting off with the sun, we have Liz's sun in Pisces and Conrad's sun in Cancer. These are both water signs. They both feel the other understands them, and there's a mutual appreciation of the music and arts. I wonder if maybe, because I know like obviously the Hilton family does all the hotels and businesses and all of that. I wonder if maybe like he kind of took interest in Liz because of the whole music and arts thing, because she's into the whole arts acting thing. Both are sensitive, intuitive, and emotional, and Liz is more broad-minded and Conrad is more personal. Liz does not value personal celebrations as much as Conrad. So I wonder if maybe Conrad was a bit more invested into this marriage than Elizabeth, if she doesn't really care for personal celebrations. Liz's sun overlaid in Conrad's 10th house. Liz sees Conrad as an authority figure. I feel like this would be a bit more with age. I'm just going to assume that he's going to be older than her, knowing those times. Liz believes she deserves respect from Conrad, and Conrad enjoys the respect he receives from Liz. Liz accepts Conrad without thinking or consideration, and she thinks that Conrad is more intellectual than her. Conrad's sun overlaid in Elizabeth's 7th house. It's a love-hate relationship and they feel united together. They are both deeply moved by each other. I mean, considering what we're seeing, it seems like Liz is a bit more a bit more deeply moved by Conrad. They both get in each other's heads and they both get a sense that they are complementary, which is weird because we did see that right in the beginning that they feel the other understands them. So it seems like there was an initial kind of like this person will get me sort of thing. Both subconsciously try to prove that they are separate from the relationship, which I mean, in terms of everything now, they definitely have. They both feel the other is a big presence in their life and they both need to find a balance to make the relationship work. I mean, so far it seems like there needs to be a balance a bit more on sort of like Conrad's authorityness, because it seems like Liz is putting him up on the pedestal, which is not very balanced. They both may be driven to express themselves in extreme ways, and possibility of their personalities being lost in the relationship. Which I feel like this would be a bit more on Liz's end rather than Conrad. If she's putting him up on a pedestal and like he's this sort of authority figure, she accepts him without thinking, sort of thing. Their suns are Trine together, so there's mutual respect and they energize each other. They are supportive of each other and cooperative with each other. Which again, I feel like considering like Liz seems to be putting him up on a pedestal, like, with the accepting him without any thinking at all, like I feel like she would be the one that is a bit more cooperative. They can freely be individuals. So again, there seems to be an element they feel they can, be themselves around each other. They're able to, express their feelings and all of that. They can deal with conflict in a healthy way, and there's a chance of accumulating wealth and luck. I assume, considering that this is also back in the day, so who knows whether like Hilton dynasty as at this point. But if they are successful, because I feel like it is like a multi-generational thing, and it's not, in all fairness of things, it's not too long ago. So I assume that, Conrad would have had his whole Hilton thing by this point and everything. So I assume like, Liz would have a bit more of that chance of accumulating wealth and luck. Again, Not sure where she is at in terms of her career. I've tried my best to avoid all of this, so one day I could, we could look at this together. But I assume, considering the Hilton name and everything, I assume it will be Liz that is the one that is accumulating that wealth and luck. Approach to life is harmonious with each other, and they both feel understood and appreciated. Elizabeth's sun is square Conrad's moon. There's a basic understanding, and practical disagreements occur, which I feel like makes sense. They seem to have a basic understanding of the other. Obviously, we've really just started this reading, so who knows what we'll see ongoing. But definitely, it seems like that sort of like 50s mentality, that sort of more traditional mindset, like we get along with each other, we're not killing each other, let's get married. There's a relationship of general discontent, and Conrad sees Liz as too rational and selfish. I wonder if the only way I could really connect this is like the whole personal celebrations thing. Maybe, he sees her as a bit more sort of like rational, more like uptight, doesn't want to like celebrate and all of that, and feels, she's a bit more selfish in that way. Liz sees Conrad as too sensitive and emotional, and Conrad may feel resentful towards Liz over time. Very quick over time. I don't believe that they were married for too long. As far as I know, I don't feel like, any of her marriages lasted like a crazy amount of time, Attraction only exists when tension and competition does. Ew, that's not great. Elizabeth's sun squared Conrad's Venus. Their views on the world clash, and it's not as promising as it looks. I mean, as I just said, it seems like that sort of like, with what we're seeing so far, that's sort of like 50s mentality. Like, yeah, we get along, let's just get married for the sake of it. And it's not as promising as it looks, just because you basically get along with each other doesn't mean you're going to be married for a long time. Love can easily turn into hate, and arguments over money are likely. Liz is selfishly ambitious in this relationship. Interesting. So maybe, I want to see a bit more on this. Maturity needs to be reached for both to overcome difficulties. I don't know how old they were when they got into all of this. Like, I seem fairly young, considering the time that it is, and that especially on Elizabeth's end, it is her first marriage. You don't have your first marriage when you're like, super old. I'm saying super old, but like sort of like in that time, like mid-20s is sort of like, reaching on the, expiry date, I guess you could say. Conrad strives to keep the relationship fair and balanced. Interesting. It seems like maybe financially so, because it seems like he is very much an authoritative figure in this relationship, has a lot more dominance in that way. They both hope to find what they are looking for in the other. Elizabeth's sun trine Conrad's Pluto. It's a transformative relationship, and it's a highly productive relationship. I'm guessing, considering that we're still the chance of accumulating wealth and luck thing, and that Liz is a bit more selfishly ambitious, I assume this would be a bit more productive on her end. Hopefully we'll see a bit more maybe on Conrad's end, because it seems like he's kind of come into this relationship like very much successful and everything. They are both fascinated with each other and its potential for a cooperative relationship, which that's a good thing we're seeing repeated. They both want to get to know each other deeply, and Conrad helps Liz discover her hidden powers. They both want to explore their strengths in the relationship, and Conrad inspires Liz to dramatically transform herself. So very much so on Liz's end, I feel like she benefited a lot more than Conrad in a lot more ways besides financially, if she is able to discover herself and all of that, which I feel like would make sense. Like, if she was on the younger side getting into this relationship, you're going to be discovering yourself regardless or not whether you're married at that age, if that makes sense. Conrad's sun trine Liz's moon. There is honest communication, and Conrad relies on Liz's support. Liz relies on Conrad's wisdom, and it's a naturally cooperative relationship. I like that we're seeing that repeated already a couple times. Liz tends to be dependent on Conrad, and they both feel they can rely on each other. Conrad's sun trine Liz's Mercury. They have a great friendship, and there's good communication. Conrad accepts Liz, and they both just get each other. I feel like in a more superficial way, like we just saw that they have basic understanding. I feel like they do have just a basic understanding of each other. They do business together well, and Conrad supports Liz's beliefs. They can talk through issues together, and Conrad gets what makes Liz tick. So it seems like he really instigated a sort of like transformation in Liz. Like he really helped her discover who she is. Conrad admires Liz's intelligence, and they understand each other on a basic level, not surprisingly so. They solve problems together positively, and they speak to each other with understanding. Conrad allows Liz to express herself, and Conrad feels he can think better around Liz. Conrad's Sun is square Elizabeth's Venus, so this is a repeated aspect, just inverted, so everything from before is further emphasized. But also Conrad is selfishly ambitious in this relationship, and Liz strives to keep the relationship fair and balanced. I'm very curious as to why Conrad got into this relationship. Like, I know it sounds weird, but like, if this is a matter of like, you know, Liz in the beginning of her career, as I assume she will be like quite young, if she's like, this is her first marriage in the 50s, I wonder what his sort of like intention was for the relationship. Because there's no way like you just get along and you just get married. Like I know that's generally how things work, but like especially if like you're an heir to like a, you know, hotel mogul empire, like surely not, you just don't marry the first actress that you get along with. Like, you know, there's a lot of them out there, I'm sure, that would have been around in the 50s. Conrad's Sun is square Liz's Uranus. It's not predictable or stable, and separation occurs and causes strain. Which, I mean, you're getting an actress and a businessman together, like you're going to separate at some point. Liz feels trapped by Conrad over time. Did we not see that Conrad also has some deteriorating factor on his end as well? So it seems like both of them over time just lose interest in this marriage. The relationship can start and end suddenly. Okay. They cannot rely on each other in the long term, and Liz changes and challenges Conrad's life. Conrad grows tired of Liz's inconsistency. I wonder if maybe he has an issue, because we did see separation occurs. Maybe she prioritizes her like actual career over the marriage. Conrad initially finds Liz attractive and appealing. Conrad's Sun conjunct Liz's Pluto. There's a deep attraction, and Conrad is drawn to Liz. It's not a superficial union. I mean, the only way I could see this, since we are seeing like over time it deteriorates, maybe it was very much like a sparks flying, like a whirlwind romance type of situation where like they did feel this was very like deep and meaningful. Liz is more dominant, and they both have a fear of losing to each other. Okay, interesting. Conrad triggers Liz's jealousy and possessiveness, and they both have a desire to know each other's deepest secrets. Okay. Now for the intermission. This video is brought to you by me, my Etsy store, Adeline the Astrologer. If you ever watch this and think, hey, I would like her to read my Synastry chart, well, I will. I do personalized Synastry chart readings on my Etsy store. I do both basic and detailed ones. The basic ones are a bit more simple to understand and really good for those just beginning out in astrology, getting their heads around it, or just as a fun gift idea. The detailed readings are very similar to what I do here, so it's a lot of it just with my insights and interpretation on the chart. So if you're interested in that and everything else, astrology and tarot, readings and gifts, definitely check out my Etsy store for that. I'm always releasing new other things there as well. And you can even just favorite the store just to support me for free. Thank you for listening, and let's get back to the reading. So now it's time for moon. We have Liz's moon in Scorpio and Conrad's moon in Gemini. They have different emotional natures, and Liz is not as detached as Conrad. Liz may become possessive of Conrad, and Liz may want more than Conrad can give. Sometimes Liz feels Conrad does not care, and they sometimes have difficulty understanding each other. I mean, that's not surprisingly so. I feel like it seems like a matter of like the more they get to know each other, they see that they're not very compatible, which is why you don't have fast marriages. But it's interesting to see, like, we're seeing that Liz seems to be very attached to Conrad, but it seems like Conrad doesn't interpret Liz that way. He seems to see her as a bit more detached and not as invested as he is. So there definitely seems to be conflict in terms of, like, I guess their intentions of the relationship and definitely how they feel about the other. Liz's moon overlaid in Conrad's 6th house. Liz has conflicting feelings toward Conrad, so maybe she just has conflicting feelings, like, you know, one time she's attached, one time she's not. Both are too helpful to each other and they can be beneficial if working towards a mutual goal. It's easy to create a resentful relationship, not surprisingly so. Conrad's moon overlaid in Liz's 6th house, so this is a repeated overlay, just inverted, so everything from before is further emphasized, but also Conrad has conflicting feelings towards Liz. Liz's moon is square Conrad's Mercury. Liz is not understanding of Conrad's communication and it's emotionally challenging. Not a great thing to be repeated. Liz has a hard time getting Conrad to listen, so maybe she does try to communicate with Conrad, he's just not listening. Conrad feels frustrated with Liz, and Liz feels Conrad does not value her opinions or respect her intellectually. I mean, if he's not even listening to you, that's fair enough. Conrad feels Liz is too sensitive to criticism, and they both need to learn to listen. Liz's moon conjunct Conrad's Saturn. Liz feels an emotional need to maintain a long-term commitment. This is interesting. Because like on both hands we have seen like the relationship deteriorates, and that's all we have really seen when it comes to the longevity. So it's interesting to add this into the mix where it seems like Liz potentially tried to keep the relationship long term, which I mean, not surprisingly so. Like if you're a young woman in the 50s and you just marry this sort of like heir to a mogul, you know, you're going to be trying to keep the relationship long term. Like that's not something you're going to be like, you know, on the sporadically divorcing in that time, you know. Conrad wants to guide Liz, which I feel like he kind of has. It seems like she really transformed and came into her own in this relationship. Conrad is protective of Liz, and Liz may either be upset with this help or accepting of it. I feel like it's leaning towards accepting of it because, again, she really seems to learn about herself here. It seems like thanks to Conrad, relationship based on mutual respect or commitment, and Conrad gives practical support rather than emotional support. I mean, we could have guessed that. It doesn't seem like Liz necessarily emotionally transforms here. I mean, we'll hopefully see more on that potentially, but it seems like, you know, it seems like she does transform in a more practical sense, like really comes into her own, learns about herself. Liz's moon is square Conrad's Neptune. They misunderstand each other's signals, and there's a possibility of avoiding and neglecting each other. I mean, emotionally, definitely. But we did see the whole like separation occurs and it causes strain, so I assume this is connected to that. It's a confusing relationship, and Liz is unsure of Conrad's intention. Me too. There's difficulty maintaining their relationship, and Liz is sensitive to Conrad's moods. Liz's moon at Trine Conrad's Pluto. There's an intense meeting, so the first meeting point. Nice, not saying a whole lot, but it's there. They both will need to let go of fake personas, and there is a strong bond. They both bring truth and change in social and political areas together. Okay. Involved in organizations together. I wonder if that was a thing back in the day. I know that Liz later on in her life, she did the whole like AIDS charity and all of that. I wonder if maybe this is where she started doing something thanks to Conrad. They can solve problems in their community and they can go through difficulties together. They can both transform each other. So yeah, again, it seems like Liz, like there is that real transformative element. We have seen that a bit more on Liz's end. Conrad's moon is square Elizabeth's Mercury, so this is a repeated aspect, just inverted. So everything from before is further emphasized, but also Conrad is not understanding of Liz's communication, and Conrad has a hard time getting Liz to listen. So they both seem to be quite terrible at communication. Liz feels Conrad is too sensitive to criticism, and Conrad feels Liz does not respect his opinions or respect him intellectually. Interesting. So they're both quite trash at all of this, it seems like, communication. Conrad's moon is square Liz's Mars. It's a stormy relationship, and they both will need to work out issues as they come. See, they need to. I don't feel like they do, considering everything we have seen. Liz sees Conrad as too sensitive, which we're seeing again. Difficult relationship emotionally if there are children. I don't know, did they ever have children together? I mean, hopefully they don't have children, and what I'm going to say is fine. But I feel like, you know, this definitely doesn't seem to be a relationship where you want to bring children into, because it seems like already emotionally they're bad. Conrad sees Liz as too insensitive, and Liz does not have the patience to connect with Conrad's feelings. But like, I know like in the beginning, like because Conrad is more authoritative, I was like, potentially he's older. Potentially he still is. I feel like they both seem to be quite immature. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Conrad was also, like, even if there is still an age gap, like, still on the younger side. It's an emotional roller coaster and they're very reactive to each other. Possibility for codependency to occur, and Liz's independence makes Conrad feel insecure. So it seems like there definitely is an issue in terms of, like, I guess Liz's priorities, because there seems to be a potential element where she does sort of prioritize her sort of acting career and all of that. It's hard to relax together and resentment can grow. We're seeing again. Conrad's moon at Trine, Liz's Saturn. Relationship goals are important and building on past traditions is important. What past traditions? Like, I don't know where, like, but that's there, I guess. Like, marriage, stability is present and there's a high potential for accumulating wealth here. Conrad sees Liz as stern and mature. Really? Like, I feel like they both seem to lean towards being more immature. Liz sees Conrad as a youngster. That's kind of funny. Like, imagine I'm here like, wow, Conrad is probably this older guy and he's actually a lot younger. Like, gosh. Based on union and dedication, and Liz is accountable with Conrad. So it seems like that's a bit weird that, like, he feels insecure, and, like, maybe because we haven't seen a whole, like, anything to indicate otherwise, like Liz is, like, sneaking around or she's, like, lying to, Conrad being dishonest and all of that. So potentially he really is just insecure if she's, like, actually telling him things. Liz's desire for lasting commitment is appealing to Conrad and his need for safety. Interesting, considering, like, we've seen a lot of deteriorating factors here. Like, I'm not surprised this didn't last. But also, all the longevity factors are lying on Liz. It seems like she's really trying to make this work. And it's interesting considering, like, it's appealing to Conrad and his need for safety and all that. So he's interested in it. I know, yes, this is deteriorating. I just wonder, like, who pulled the trigger, I guess. It wasn't a mutual thing because it seems like neither of them want this to end as such. Liz prioritizes domestic help, so she seems to does value the relationship as well. It seems like there is just a conflict of communication. Liz finds it difficult to be emotionally caring. I mean, we have not seen anything positive here emotionally, have we? Together, they can achieve long-term goals and mutual projects gradually. How long was this relationship? Because I don't see it as being more like gradual, like a sort of like, waiting for a plant to grow type of goal making, Conrad's moon is square Liz's Neptune, so this is a repeated aspect, just inverted. So everything from before is further emphasized, but also Conrad is unsure of Liz's intentions and Conrad is sensitive to Liz's moods. So now it's time for Mercury. We have Liz's Mercury in Pisces and Conrad's Mercury in Leo. Liz may find Conrad self-righteous and egotistical. I mean, going right to the beginning where, she does seem to put him on the pedestal. He's this authority figure. Conrad can be too direct or brash for Liz, and Liz can be a buzzkill for Conrad. Conrad can be impatient with Liz and they can learn from each other. I mean, I really hope they learned from this relationship, particularly on Conrad, because it seems like Liz has. Liz's Mercury overlaid in Conrad's 10th house. Hard to talk about things outside of goals and career, and Conrad may be fascinated by Liz. Conrad tends to idealize Liz, and it's possibly a one-sided relationship. This is interesting. I mean, with this particular overlay, it's one-sided, and in this overlay, it seems to be one-sided on Conrad's end. I wonder, because we did see right in the beginning that Liz is selfishly ambitious in this relationship. I'm just making that connection. I hope we'll see a bit more so we can have more insight onto that. They're a public couple and they may like to work together. Conrad's Mercury overlaid in Liz's 8th house. Conrad can hurt Liz with his words. I mean, not surprisingly so. Like, we have seen she's quite sensitive to it. He is a bit too brash for her. Conrad is prone to dominating conversation and Liz takes conversation seriously. Conversation tends to get deep quickly and there is clear and precise conversation. Liz's Mercury square Conrad's Venus. They understand love intellectually and they find each other interesting and attractive. They may never understand each other's romantic ideas. See, their communication here is so trash. I don't know if we've ever covered a couple like this where communication is this bad. Like, it's honestly horrific and it's I guess the sign of the times as well. There's frequent disagreements and mundane communication may be difficult. They need to learn to listen to each other, and exchanging ideas may be a source of conflict. Honestly, like talking is a source of conflict, like it's that bad. There's a difference in music taste. Conrad's Mercury conjunct Liz's Jupiter. Liz introduces Conrad to lucky connections. So I assume this would be in like the acting Hollywood industry. Liz encourages Conrad to expand his horizons. I wonder because, like Conrad Hilton Jr. implies that I assume his father would be the one that started the whole hotel empire sort of thing. I wonder if it was one of those stereotypical like heirs like to the throne, I guess you could say, where like they're sort of meant to be in line but they don't want to be in line, and it's the whole this is my real passion, not this. I wonder if maybe he tried to get into acting and that's how him and Liz stumbled upon each other. It's a relationship of learning, and traveling strengthens the relationship. Conrad helps Liz be practical, not surprisingly, so we literally just saw he provides practical help. Liz feels her thinking is valued by Conrad. I assume this would be thinking in terms of like, hey Conrad, meet this person, they'll help you out, and that sort of thing. I don't feel like on a deeper level thinking is very valued. They have a strong intellectual bond, and there's a favorable business partnership. So now it's time for Venus. We have Liz's Venus in Aries and Conrad's Venus in Gemini. They both see love as something fun. I really don't like seeing this. Like, honestly, this is one where I'm like, I'm kind of happy they separated, because this sounds like a nightmare of a relationship. And very, I guess, sort of like sporadic, if that makes sense. Like, it seems like, I don't want to use the word like shotgun wedding, because I don't feel like they had kids at all. But it seems like that sort of like vibe of like you immediately getting married with no thinking, sort of like elopement style. They are both active in this relationship, and they both allow the other to be an individual outside of the relationship, which in a sense they do, yeah. Conrad loves having satisfying conversation with Liz, and Liz is impatient with Conrad. Liz finds it draining to have lengthy conversations with Conrad. Again, I'm just a jukebox. The communication is terrible. It's a relationship of instability, and attraction to the other fluctuates. Are you kidding me? This is... No. They both need to learn to slow down with each other. Yeah, I would agree. Like, honestly, before they got married, maybe they should have tried more than a few conversations together, because I feel like the communication, like, generally seems to be so bad. Like, did they even have a conversation before they met each other? Like, sure, it probably would have just been some small talk thing. Like, it reminds me of, like, how Princess Diana and Prince Charles, when, like, they only had, like, a few meetings before they actually got married. Like, same thing I'm feeling happened here. Conrad may find Liz shallow. Liz's Venus overlaid in Conrad's 11th house. Liz immediately likes Conrad, and Conrad senses he can be himself around Liz. They both share the same social activities and hobbies. So I really wonder if they did meet for acting of some kind, like if they both have similar like social activities and hobbies and all of that. They are both comfortable with each other, and they are good friends. They are both open with each other. So some glimmers of hope we're seeing, which is nice. Conrad's Venus overlaid in Liz's 6th house. Conrad feels he doesn't have much in common with Liz. I mean, I feel like, fairly quickly into their marriage, he would realize that. Liz senses that Conrad is not really into her. Oh, that's kind of sad. Neither sees the other as their type. Why did they get together is my question on both ends. Like, I guess Liz, I kind of understand, because, this sort of heir to the throne type of situation, wealth and all of that. Maybe he was like a nice, younger, good-looking guy. Like, why not? And it's the 50s. But on Conrad's end, I really don't see why he's in this relationship. They're together as a result of duty and obligation. I mean, I guess that's a reason why. Like, it's a helpful and productive relationship. Elizabeth's Venus conjunct Conrad's Mars. Intensity does not fade, and they will always remember each other. Interesting. I don't feel like it's in like a good way though. Like, it doesn't seem to be this like great love story. Like, to me, this whole reading seems to be like a real whirlwind romance, where they didn't really get to know each other at all. Like, so I feel like they would remember the sort of like rush of the love and everything. They have arguments over petty things and know how to push each other's buttons. Liz attracts Conrad with her charm, and Conrad attracts Liz with his straightforward nature. Liz's Venus trine Conrad's Neptune. They are tolerant of each other, and Liz is willing to overlook Conrad's faults. I don't like this. Like, I really hope this is like, you know, in their marriage, like, I want to make this last, let's overlook his faults. Because if this was before their marriage, geez. They're attracted to each other and they have similar taste in music and art. It's a loving and harmonious relationship, and expectations are part of the meeting. This is an interesting thing thrown in now, like expectations being part of the meeting and they're together as a result of duty or obligation. I would be curious to see if we can get a bit more since this is all coming up now, because I don't see why they would be together as in terms of like duty and obligation. Like Liz, I kind of get. Conrad, I don't know why an heir to an empire is marrying a sort of up-and-coming actress, if that makes sense. Am I being too mean? Like, please correct me if I am in the comments. Liz may expect too much of Conrad. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It seems like Liz has a bit more expectations. Especially considering we did see in the beginning she is a bit more selfishly ambitious in this relationship. Conrad may be easily charmed by Liz, which we did just see before. Liz's Venus square Conrad's Pluto. There's a fine line between love and hate, and they both will need to deal with possessive, jealous, and volatile emotions. Yeah. We've only really seen the whole possessiveness thing on Elizabeth's end. They bring out each other's deepest insecurities, and there's an intense fear of losing each other, which is interesting. I wonder, how they met. I'm curious, but also how things ended, because we are seeing they don't seem to want the relationship to end. It seems like they want to keep it going, so I wonder how it all finished. Power struggles are likely to happen, and they cannot be just friends after. Conrad seems to have the higher power. I mean, going back to the beginning, he is a bit more authoritative in that way, and I feel like status-wise he would be. Conrad's Venus square Elizabeth's Neptune. Conrad needs to make sure he falls for the real Liz, not the illusion. Interesting. Did she start making movies? I assume she did. Because she was like a child star, I believe, so she would have had some movies. Potentially, maybe he fell in love with the sort of what he saw on stage rather than the actual Liz. And it goes back to how we have been seeing that Conrad is very easily charmed by Elizabeth. There's extremes of trusting, and Liz needs to be careful to keep promises and not make huge ones. I wonder if this is in terms of maybe prioritizing her acting versus domestic life. Liz has a hard time dealing with Conrad because he doesn't want to see reality. Nice. So now it's time for Mars. We have Liz's Mars in Pisces and Conrad's Mars in Aries. They both have fluctuating energy. See, this is really, I'm not really liking that we're seeing this again, that they fluctuate when it really does seem like this is just a fluctuating relationship. Conrad is active and Liz is passive. Both enjoy the conquest of love. Yeah, this really feels to me like a sort of whirlwind romance, the sort of rush of love and everything. I wonder if potentially this is sort of their first maybe experience with love, because, especially in that time, I guess you kind of feel a bit of love and it's this is the one, this is what love is. Liz may be too slow for Conrad and they contrast each other emotionally. I mean, I don't feel like we saw a whole lot of emotional connection here, did we? Liz is willing to please Conrad and both have a childlike quality, which goes back to how, throughout this reading, it seems like they both lean towards being a bit more mature. Maybe they just have a childlike quality to them. Liz will have difficulty asserting herself when Conrad has outbursts. I don't like this. Liz's Mars overlaid in Conrad's 10th house. Liz motivates and pushes Conrad to achieve. I mean, I like this sort of element. It seems like they both do grow from this relationship and they both are able to be more individual when, when they're outside of this relationship. We did see that they're both able to, be individuals outside of the relationship. And it seems to be that way. Conrad is seemingly helping Elizabeth to transform. And we have seen that, Liz does seem to push Conrad, help him with connections, broaden his horizons, all of that. Liz brings out Conrad's competitive side, and there's a more cold and detached chemistry. I would say more detached rather than cold. I feel like it's very like hot and fiery. Neither know what they want from the other, and Liz seems interested in Conrad to outsiders. Liz wants to impress Conrad, and Conrad has the tendency to put his walls up around Liz. Nice, I guess. Oh gosh, I'm not liking this. Conrad craves and fears Liz's stability at the same time. So this is leaning towards maybe Conrad pulling the trigger to end the relationship, because we did see how he really craves and appreciates Liz's commitment to stability and all of that. So I wonder if like on Conrad's end there is a sort of like thing with like craving and fearing the stability that Liz is able to provide to him. And that is why I'm like, maybe he was the one that ended things. Relationship seems intense to outsiders. I mean, yes, yeah, it does, based off this reading. Conrad's Mars overlaid in Liz's 4th house. Conrad pushes Liz outside of her comfort zone, and Conrad can't provide the peace Liz wants. I mean, it's nice that like they seem to be pushing each other to achieve their goals. That's a good thing. Conrad feels flustered around Liz, and Liz is nurturing to Conrad. Liz creates a safe space for Conrad, and arguments are heated due to being defensive and emotional. I feel like creating the safe space for Conrad would be like, I guess, wanting to commit to the relationship and actually being there, because that's what seems like, Conrad is craving safety-wise. Liz's Mars conjunct Conrad's Jupiter. They're a lucky couple, and Liz brings in things to expand the relationship interesting. There is healthy competition, and Conrad supports Liz's independence. Again, I feel like but they both have conflicting feelings in their own way. On Conrad's end, obviously the stability, but also like he seems to be insecure with Liz's independence, but we're seeing he supports it. They enjoy traveling, sport, and adventures together. They have a lot of fun together, and there's risk of excessiveness. Balance needs to be carefully maintained, and Liz feels energized by Conrad. They feel stronger as a team than by themselves, and recklessness is a possibility. I mean, them getting married, I feel like is very reckless. They may encourage each other to engage in controversial behavior. Conrad's Mars trine Liz's Jupiter. Self-expression is encouraged, so I assume this will be in terms of their independence. You could also see this as maybe their acting pursuits. Like, I really wonder like if Conrad like tried to stumble into that industry, because I don't believe he ever was an actor. Maybe he had a little stint. They feel they can do anything together, and they're a lucky couple. Liz is okay with Conrad asserting himself, and they have healthy competitiveness. They are able to have fun together, and they enjoy trying new things together. So it seems like they are able to like actual physical activities together, like the whole traveling, sport, adventures, that sort of thing. That seems to be a good element to the relationship. I feel like when they're actually doing things, shared interest in sports and travel, we're seeing again, and Liz helps Conrad get out of his comfort zone, that we're seeing again. Conrad feels more energized around Liz and could possibly be a reckless relationship, not surprisingly so. Conrad's Mars conjunct Liz's Uranus. Liz enjoys surprising Conrad, and it's an exciting and stimulating relationship. It's an unconventional relationship. I mean, I feel like not so much to the relationship itself, but I feel like, I guess, how the relationship ended is pretty unconventional considering like the time period that they're in. Liz's independence attracts Conrad to him. Oh gosh. Not that it's a bad thing, but considering what we did see with, Conrad feeling conflicted about that and not necessarily appreciating it. They want to support people in need together. That's a nice thing that's repeated. It's not a stable relationship, and Conrad finds Liz exciting. Liz can trigger Conrad's temper. I don't like seeing this, and how we saw before that when Conrad has outbursts that Liz is not, I think, able to handle it. That's not a great thing. Explosive sudden arguments are likely to happen, but they diffuse quickly. It's a relationship of trying new things. I mean, that's one way to put it. Conrad sees Liz as a friend, and Liz is attracted to Conrad's passion and decisiveness. Conrad cannot always keep up with Liz. I wonder if that's why he maybe feels insecure with Liz's independence, because it seems like maybe she's going ahead with things, like sort of, that whole stereotype of the woman having more money is intimidating and like upsetting to the man. They may encourage each other to engage in reckless and impulsive behavior. We're seeing again, and I feel like the whole marriage thing is very impulsive on their part. Liz may see Conrad as a threat to her independence. Conrad's Mars square Liz's Pluto. There are power struggles and external influences challenge their relationship. I wonder which ones, who knows? I guess like what I can think of is potentially like Conrad's family and like I guess society in general, you could say. Conrad's blunt nature triggers Liz's inner issues and they can dig into each other's psychological issues. Oh god, that's not a great thing to bring into all of this. They need to deal with their own demons instead of fighting each other, and Conrad is actively asserting his independence here. There's a brutal transformation. I think that's a good way to put it. They do transform. It does seem to be in a quite brutal and harsh way. It's not like a nice learning relationship. I feel like there's a lot of fire here. So that was the final aspect, bringing us to the end of this reading. If you are still watching, please share your thoughts below. I'd be very curious to see what you guys have to say about this one. One of my longest readings. My camera is warning me that footage is running out, so it's definitely been a very long one, and I would be very curious to see what you guys have to say about this one, especially since this is a different sort of reading. I'm doing, start of a new mini-series. Hopefully you guys are just as excited for it. If you have made it this far, please consider subscribing for more. I post these readings weekly. And besides that, give this video a like, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!